Hi, my name is Vanessa Vallely and welcome to Behind the Cover. We are the City series that looks at authors and their fantastic books. This morning, I'm very grateful to be joined by the incredible Jackie Weaver. Hello.
Hello there.
So Jackie is a recent author to a book called You Do Have the Authority here. So we're just going to have a chat with Jackie to find out what happened at the tail end of last year that caused such a furore on the internet, where her meeting went viral, that ended up being the consequence of that, ended up being this fabulous book. So Jackie, first of all, before we start, give us a little bit of history about you.
Oh my goodness. The trouble is when you're 63 years old, there's quite a lot of history. And clearly your program's not 5 hours long. So, but maybe the relevant bits are, got married about 27 years old, had 3 children, went back to work in local government and spent the last 25 years supporting local councils, that's town and parish councils, in the background, giving them procedural advice and training, that kind of.
Fabulous. So to put that into context, that is a kind of governance role, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay, so for 25 years you've been helping the parish council, and obviously that involves a series of meetings that you have to have on a regular basis.
Yes, but I don't help one parish council. I help 234 parish councils.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Much larger scope then.
Yeah, so I work with a small team. Don't get me wrong, I'm not super grand. But what we do is when a council needs training, when it needs help or advice or anything like that, they call on our organisation to do that. And we in turn are affiliated to a national body, the National Association of Local Councils. So the night I was at Handforth was the first time I'd clerked a meeting. That's not strictly true. I had clerked a meeting for them many years before, but I was there that night because the chairman had unilaterally suspended their proper clerk, and they needed somebody to facilitate a meeting for them.
So we're getting the picture here. So before I go into kind of what happened, what's involved in clerking a meeting?
Oh gosh, a clerk's role is a very kind of underestimated one. I think people often see it as being a kind of admin role, but it's really more like that clerk to the court. It's quite a serious role. So the clerk would normally be the person that would prepare all the papers councillors needed, make sure that they'd covered all their statutory duties, etc. They're often the responsible financial officer. It's quite it's quite an important and challenging job. But that night I was only there to facilitate a meeting.
Okay, so let's go to that night. So back in December, you're acting as clerk, facilitating this meeting, and tell us a little bit what happened. I mean, I'm going to put a link to the actual meeting footage so people can see it, but what actually happened on that evening?
There had been tensions in the council for some time, and hence the reason that they didn't have a clerk, and I was there. I'd been invited by 2 councillors that had called a separate meeting because the chairman wouldn't call a meeting. And because of that, I went myself. Well, it's virtual, but I did it myself rather than sending any of my colleagues, because I knew that there was going to be some challenge. Okay. But what I didn't expect was the level of anger and hostility from at least one of the members there. Not just directed to me, but to each other. I've never seen such appalling behaviour.
So as a consequence of that meeting, I mean, obviously I've seen the clip, and I believe I said we put it in the text of this this article anyway. But so obviously you get into a bit of a debate with the chairman, don't you? Which ends up with you exiting him out of the Zoom. And then there was some other gentlemen that were also being rather difficult. And at one point, one of the other ladies kind of comes in on her white horse to try and help you. And I mean, I think one of the reasons it went viral is this was what we would think was perhaps a sleepy council parish meeting, and it ended up, with millions of hits on the internet where people were witnessing the fact that you took that authority. And I think that was the line he kept saying to you: you have no authority here. You took the authority and you just kicked him out the Zoom. Which
Well, I know that's what it looks like.
Okay.
That's not exactly what happened. I mean, he is absolutely right. I have no authority to remove him from a meeting, but that wasn't what I did. So one of the, you say there was a kind of argy-bargy. Actually, all I was doing was stopping him talking.
Yeah,
And
like that.
no, because I knew that what he would do is immediately say, as he tried to say, this meeting's been unlawfully called. Hadn't been. I challenged that with him. And he was about to put it to the vote that therefore they should close the meeting. And the whole point of that night was to actually make a meeting take place. So if he got the words out and his supporters had then voted for him, that was it. The meeting was over. Failure.
Okay.
So all I did was put him on mute to start off with. But he would just keep coming back. He wasn't going to let it go. So in the end, I put him in the waiting room.
He must have been furious.
I don't know whether he was furious, but his colleague was incandescent with rage.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of am someone who lives in a fairly sleepy life. I don't seek out confrontation on anything. So to be met with that level of aggression was kind of like, I have no point of reference for this at all. So he was so obnoxious that the only thing to do with him was to put him in the waiting room.
Yeah.
And
You
finally,
put both of the bad boys into the waiting room.
yeah. And finally, there was the poor. I don't know what he is really. Another colleague that just kind of like didn't really seem to understand what's going on at all. So we put them in the waiting room. They hadn't called the meeting. 2 councillors were left who had called the meeting, and so the later bit that you don't see is where they resolve to exclude them. So
Right.
It's absolutely right. I did not have the authority to remove him from the meeting, but I didn't do that anyway.
No. So, I mean, to be a fly on the wall in that waiting room, you know, both of them being put on the naughty step, so to speak.
Well, it was interesting because actually the way that the meeting, the way the evening panned out was we did have a meeting at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that went that way. I mean, that was pretty much what happened at 7 o'clock. And then 40 minutes later, we're having the full council meeting. And I'm thinking, what are they going to do? You know, because any logical human being is going to go, right, well, that didn't work.
Yeah.
What are we going to do this time? They just did exactly the same thing again. It's like, I just can't believe that. I kind of really expected them to do something. I mean, I thought what they would do is just start the meeting and vote everything down.
Yeah.
That would have been the obvious thing to do.
Do you still talk to the gentleman now? Is the animosity? You don't?
No. I still talked. When I say talk to them, I mean they are about an hour and a quarter away from my from my office. But I have occasional contact with the clerk, and that's how it usually is.
Yeah.
Because they get in touch when they have a problem. So, you know, the less they get in touch, the better things are going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been in touch with Clark's been in touch with me. A couple of the female councillors have been in touch with me, just, you know, talking about various things that's going on in the parish. And they've invited me to switch on their Christmas light.
So, Jackie, was there any time in that meeting where you felt your own emotions running high? You know, how did you feel when all that was going on?
Yeah, it's a nice way that you've phrased the question, Vanessa, because a lot of people phrase it by saying, "You were incredibly calm," and it kind of always takes me by surprise when they say that, because I think, how do you know I was calm? You don't know me. Actually, I was anything but calm. It was a very stressful situation. It was one where I was totally out of my comfort zone. And in fact, you know, I've been on record saying this before, my hands were shaking so much that it was actually difficult to get the mouse over the right part of the screen to move them into the waiting room. But the last thing a situation like that needs is more fuel.
Absolutely. And it is, I mean, I've been in meetings as well where they've got fairly animated, not to the kind of degree that you have, but you know, where people are trying to get their point across, and that passion kind of can come across as aggression and stuff like that. And you know, one of the things it's come up quite a lot in focus groups and discussions that we have is when you're in that meeting, like as a woman, having your voice heard. Do you think it had anything to do with the fact you were female and he was male? Was there anything going on there, or was it just the fact that he didn't see you had the authority, which you didn't, which you've said, or was it a case of regardless of who would have been sitting in that seat, he would have still acted the same?
I think it was a power struggle.
Right.
I don't think he saw the person that was there. I mean, he mentioned something about, you know, either whoever you are and whatever you're doing. Well, he knows who I am. I've sat in his living room before now.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know.
So
I think it was just a power struggle.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to somebody who's not having their voice heard? Because as I say, it comes up a lot in discussions that we have, that sometimes it's hard to get, especially if you're the quietest person in the room. How do you get your opinion over? How do you get heard by individuals that obviously just don't want to hear your voice?
I guess for me, it's about separating out. Do you want to have your voice heard, or do you want people to see you having your voice heard? I think there's a huge difference between the two. Yeah. Because often that meeting where you feel really uncomfortable, you feel unheard, etc., is not the place where you're going to make the difference.
Yeah.
So, you know, think about what it is that you're trying to achieve, and is there a better way of doing it?
Absolutely. So when the story broke, I mean, I understand at the end of the meeting, the meeting's recorded and you post a link and that goes onto the website so everyone can hear it. And it was a student that actually saw that video and then kind of took the most what's the word I'm looking for, excitable bits, and put it on the internet, and then obviously it went viral. I mean, how did you first found out that video, that recording, had gone viral?
A colleague of mine texted me on the Thursday evening, I think it was, to say, you've gone, you're trending number 3 in the country. And I thought, you know that thing where you go, that's nice. Either you haven't heard or you've no idea what the other person's talking about.
Yeah.
You know? And then so I sent back some platitude, thanks for letting me know, you know, that kind of thing. Then a bit later, you know, sort of, you know, my God, trending number 1. And I thought, well, trending number 3 didn't mean much to me. Trending number 1 doesn't mean an awful lot more.
What were your children saying at this point? So
well,
they're my age.
Okay, fair point. So I text my son, who's mid-30s. Okay, not a child exactly, but and he said, "Don't worry, Mum. It'll be a mistake." So that's how it started.
And then how did you, I mean, obviously the press were massively interested. I remember seeing it in February on the news. So I was cheering you from my TV, and I know a lot of other women were. But I mean, how did you cope with all of that? You know, those moments of everybody kind of wanting a piece of you.
It's such an interesting question, and I know, and I've just done it. We always say that when we haven't got a clue what the answer is. But in many ways, pardon?
There's another tip for our viewers.
But in many ways, I haven't had time to process it. I was saying to my husband the other day there, you know, kind of situations where logically I know that I should be incredibly stressed doing it. Like, for example, I did Steph's packed lunch last week.
Yeah, she's lovely.
And did quite a big piece there. I was there all morning. There were several aspects, but one of them was reading the news sketch they do, using an auto cue on live TV for the first time.
Yeah,
and I was sitting there. I should be anxious. I mean, for goodness sake, short of landing a plane without a pilot, you know, what is it going to take to stress you out? You know, and I'm thinking, I don't know. And all I've got at the moment is I need to take that away and think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I watched Piers Morgan really tried to drill into your backstory, you know, trying to find any little nugget, and you just was having none of it. It looked from the outside like that you was absolutely press trained, like a seasoned politician that was avoiding the question, but you just saying, I'm just Jackie, you know. And I thought that's fabulous and very humbling as well. So where did the book come from? So obviously, you know, everybody wants a piece of you on the news and stuff, lots of different you know, people featuring you and stuff like that, and it's great to hear you was on Step Back Lunch last week. Where did the book idea come from?
Publisher contacted me and said, would you like to write a book? And my first thought was, no.
Okay.
And my second thought, you know,
unwilling author.
Pardon?
The unwilling author.
But that's so much unwilling. It's like, you know, what the heck would anybody be interested in what I've got to say for, you know?
But you'd be surprised.
Well, they were persistent, and you know, I thought, well, okay, what might I like to write about? Let's look at this as an opportunity. And I first thought about writing something about parish councils, and I thought, yeah, that'd be great if you only ever want to sell 6 copies of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought, no, that's my day job. That's something I'm doing all the time. I wouldn't want to then extend it into the effort and energy that goes into writing even a small book.
Yeah.
So I thought, I was talking to Stuart about it, and we said, well, often we have that kind of Walton moment where you sit on the edge of the bed. Do you know what I mean? You go,
Yeah.
do you know what? And the number of times we said, why are we so short of common sense these days? It's bleeding obvious what to do about this. Why don't they know? And I thought, okay, well, that's what I'll write about, a book of common sense.
So tell us what sort of common sense is included in the book.
Oh gosh, where to start? There's so many different aspects of it. I'm really not sure where to start.
How do you think? So, for example, our audience are mostly corporate women. Again, they can resonate with you in that room in some way.
Okay.
So what do you think that audience would take away from the book?
Okay. 2 things I think that are really important. And one of them you touched on earlier, which is about having your voice heard.
Yeah.
And often I think that when you are trying to get your voice heard, you get more and more loud. In whatever form loud means. Loud might mean that you get bigger, you know, in terms of you wear bigger clothes, brighter clothes, you wear higher heels and broader shoulders, all these kind of things. Or you physically get louder, you know. And you never stop to think about, why aren't you being heard? Now, I don't know why you're not being heard. I don't know your circumstances. But is it possible that you're not saying anything worth listening to?
Yeah. That's you know, that goes back to an element of self-awareness, doesn't it?
Yep.
Which sometimes to look inwards and actually ask yourself that question, you don't really want to know the answer. And I think we all think we're worthy of being heard, our voices are being heard, but it's whether or not the people in that room feel that you're worthy of being heard.
Yeah. And then you've got, you know, like if you've got 16 items on the agenda, pick one to talk about. Don't be the person that talks about everything. You don't care about everything. You know, you're just making a noise. And then as soon as you speak, people go, oh God, you know, because you've always got an opinion on everything.
Yeah.
Well, you're diluting your message so much that nobody really knows what it is that you're wanting. I think the other thing, which is more outward looking, is particularly in more intimate situations, you know, rather than a big board meeting or something, is what's going on with the other person.
Yeah.
You know, you've automatically assumed that the issue is something to do with you. Maybe it's something to do with them.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know, I'm a big proposer of the idea of listening to people, and even people that are difficult to listen to. Because if you can cut through it mentally, sometimes you find something really worthwhile there.
Yeah. And I think, you know, in our terms, I think about kind of relate this back to what the audience may resonate with. You know, it's those difficult stakeholders that we have to deal with. You know, they're the ones that, you're quite right, if you can get them on side and if you can build a relationship, even if it's a prickly relationship with them, you know, that's probably your biggest battle, you know. So yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Do you have a favorite chapter of the book? Is there one that you really enjoyed writing?
I think the one for me that I really enjoy, and I can't for the life of me think what we've called it, is the one where we talk about how it's absolutely fine to be ordinary.
Yeah.
I think that we put so much pressure on, first of all, young women, and then
Yeah.
women in general, with this idea of you can have it all, you can be it all.
Yeah,
No,
a lot
you
of pressure
can't.
there.
Of
No,
course you can't.
we talk about that a
It's
lot.
about, yeah, it's about choice, and it's okay to make that choice, and it's
Yeah.
okay to be a good businesswoman and a good mother.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be the pinnacle of motherhood and the pinnacle of business at the same time.
Couldn't agree more. And I think there's also this level of guilt
Yeah,
that's thrown on us by this idyllic society and what that picture perfect woman looks like, that she's, as you say, knocking it out the park in work, and she's the best mother ever, and she's the greatest partner and sister and friend, and it is almost impossible, even with an army of supporters. I don't know about you. I mean, I always carried this guilt. Wherever I was always guilty I was somewhere else, or I was always guilty that I wasn't with another person when I was with someone else. So I just think that guilt is there. And I think obviously the stuff that we see in society, and social media in particular, has exacerbated that as well.
yeah, absolutely. And I think this thing about, and I think this is universal, I don't think it's just for women, but the idea of how important it is that we are all unique and special.
Yeah.
And you may be unique and special, and that's fabulous, something to be celebrated. But you're not a failure if you're not. I mean, the way I kind of describe it in the book is that, imagine making a house or community out of bricks that were all unique and special.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't create anything bigger. It just creates a lot of individual, unique and special. What are we going to build with that?
Exactly. No, I do agree. And again, I just liken it back to things that I remember years ago. I was running a team, and all of the team were very much, I'd hide in my own shadow, which is something you should never do. They were all mini me's, right? They were all extroverts. They all had loads of ideas. They were all very in your face kind of people. And when I think back to it now, that meeting room was just a load of noise. And there was one gentleman that was very quiet. When he spoke with purpose. People listened because he didn't speak that often, but he was observant. And I couldn't get my head around the fact that he wasn't like us, and that he wanted to come in and work from 9 to 5. And he wasn't, he didn't have this raging ambition or anything like that. And as a young leader at the time, I couldn't get my head around that. I see it now. I see it that it takes all sorts in that room. And it's okay to be like that. And I think it's also okay, even if you are an extroverted individual, to have those quiet moments of being introverted and to want to subtract yourself from the mad, noisy world we live in. So I absolutely agree with that point. So that's my first chapter I'm going to head for, because I'm waiting for my book to arrive. So what's next? What's next for Jackie Weaver?
Oh, goodness.
I mean, you've been on national TV, you've gone viral, you've written a book, you're turning on Christmas lights. Where does it go from here?
I don't know. I have this kind of feeling that I'm busy catching up and I'm not driving. And that's definitely true. And I'm one of those people that I do find it easy to make decisions, but I make them when the time is right.
Yeah.
And at the moment, the time doesn't feel right. I've still got another couple of projects coming up. I mean, one, of course, Panto, but that's going to be virtual because I just don't have the time to commit to going every evening, and matinees do. But my the producer of my podcast has persuaded me that I will really enjoy doing a live show in London.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have 6 tremendous comedians forming my parish council, and we'll be doing a couple of live shows in London next February, which is the anniversary of the story breaking. But after that, I don't know. It's been such a marvelous opportunity to first of all, experience that world. And I am in such a fortunate position when it comes to that experience, because I'm able to participate in it, but it's almost like participating from, I don't know, a different level. How do I
Looking
describe
through
it?
a window.
I'm with people for whom this is their life,
Yeah,
but it's not my life.
yeah,
So I kind of watch it with more of a detachment.
yeah.
You know, kind of, yeah, I don't want it to sound, I don't know, disinterested. It's not disinterest, but it's just not my passion.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting to be involved in.
I think that's a wonderful way to look at it. You know, you often see people the way this happens and they kind of get a little bit caught up in their own press, you know, and they go along for the ride. But your humbleness and your kind of ability to just kind of let this happen, ride the wave, see where it takes you is very, very admirable.
I mean, I don't think I would want to have, for example, supposing somebody said to me, "Oh, we need to give you a TV show, Jackie." I don't think I'd want that.
No, but you've got to stick to what you want, haven't you?
But what I do want is that, you know, if I can continue the profile, so that I'm able to use that for what I think is more important to me, which is a day job, the promotion of communities and local government, getting involved, making a difference, all that kind of stuff, then that's what's really important to me. But I don't see at the moment how I can have one without the other.
Yeah. So just before we finish, because I know you are really keen to get more individuals involved in parish council work. So just briefly, just tell us why do you think that's a good position to hold and how can they get involved?
Again, and it's something I pick up in the book. I think that we give out a message, and you know, I'm kind of thinking again about young people like Greta Thunberg, that kind of person, not thing. That would be cruel, and how we kind of applaud people who are out there changing the world. I don't think they change the world. I think they get a bit of press for a while, and we all go back to doing what we're doing, feeling a bit more guilty for a child having told us that we should be doing it differently. But nothing actually changes. So I just feel so strongly that if we all look in our own backyard and look at our own communities, that actually the world will take care of itself. By definition, we are changing the world. And you know, if we could have young people grow up with that message, that, you know, if you get involved in your own communities, that's where you're going to make a big difference. And it's where you will be energized because you'll see a difference in a reasonable timescale. The world's going to take an awful long time to change. I won't see it. Right. You know, so let's look at things that we can see a difference in. And for me, that's about local government, local democracy. How you find out more, have a look at the nalc.gov.uk website and look for the Make a Change campaign. That tells you how you get involved in local councils, and you can get involved in all sorts of ways. When I was 25 years ago, I started as a councillor, but it wasn't for me. I've been a clerk, that wasn't for me either. I found my home giving advice, overarching advice, and kind of playing in the background. That's where I was most comfortable, and you'll find your place.
Fantastic. So a lovely message for us to end with. Jackie encouraging you to get involved in community, and I couldn't agree more. And those small changes lead to big change. So, Jackie, it has been an absolute joy to talk to you. So you can find Jackie's book. You do have the authority here, and she certainly does in this interview, on Amazon or good bookshop. So you can see the link on We Are the City. So go buy a copy, support Jackie's work, and know that whatever we're doing to support her, she too will go on to make change somewhere in the world. So thank you very much, Jackie.